So last night I was finally able to finish all 4 episodes of Marvel Animation's new Eyes of Wakanda series that just released on Disney+. And in the end, I thought it was just an okay series. Nothing blew me away about it. I didn't think necessarily anything was awful with it, but by the end, I thought it was just a safe Marvel animation project. Animation-wise, it reminded me a little bit of Prince of Egypt in a way. I'm not a big animation stickler, but I did think some of the animation was a lot crisper in some of the episodes and some of the characters versus some scenes in the others. That being said, I thought they had some very gorgeous looking painting backdrops in a couple of their episodes, very reminiscent of Lord of the Rings for me. Not necessarily putting it on Lord of the Rings level, but it just reminding me with the painting backdrops. And story-wise, it follows the Wakandan war dogs. So if you don't know who the war dogs are, it's essentially Wakanda's Black Ops CIA organization that works behind the scenes around the globe to gather intel for Wakanda, to keep Wakanda's secrets essentially secret, and recover lost artifacts that might be in the world that could cause danger to Wakanda, to other countries, or combination of both. So this story follows 4 different war dogs across 4 different time periods with the task of recovering artifacts that were stolen for Wakanda and then bringing them back to Wakanda. As the story progresses, there is some loose connectivity between the previous episodes that does eventually culminate in the 4th and final episode that does have a story plot that wraps around all of the previous 3 episodes and gives it a central theme as to what this is all about. Now, one of the biggest problems I had with that final episode, though, is because they did make the decision to make this MCU canon. I'm not sure why they did that. Maybe that's for future reasoning. Maybe they've got an idea that they had with this show that they're going to bring into the MCU going forward. But with that comes a little bit of a plot hole in regards to how they explain time travel in the 4th episode, because it's kind of the complete opposite with how they explained it in Endgame. So that's just kind of a tiny plot hole. I'm not sure if it's going to be that big of a deal in the end, because I'm not sure how many people are going to watch Eyes of Wakanda. So they'll probably just stick with the logic that they had in Endgame in future projects. But 2 also big pros I will give to this. I loved seeing Iron Fist in this series in the episode that she was in. I really like, especially in Marvel animation with series, I love seeing crossovers with different characters coming into different, kind of countries, universes, and having to interact with different groups. I thought the action scenes with her were really good. I thought her animation, even though I've kind of said the animation's been okay overall, I thought her animation was really good. But what's probably unfairly hurting this show for me is I'm comparing it, and again, I shouldn't do it, but I am, because it's very similar to how Predator Killer of Killers did their movie recently. It's another Disney product released on Hulu. But instead of going the series route, they wrapped their anthology in a movie. So they essentially had 3 different time periods. And I thought they did a much better job of, in between each time period, connecting it. You knew that there was an overall story and kind of an idea of where that story was going throughout the anthology episodes. And then eventually that they culminated in one final 3rd act of bringing those episodes together into another central story of its own, and had all those characters interact with each other, and then concluded with essentially a cliffhanger that teases future projects to come. So Killer of Killers to me seemed like a much more buttoned up product to watch, especially in the writer's room and in the direction that it wanted to go. I don't necessarily know this for a fact with Eyes of Wakanda, but it felt to me personally that it felt like a part of the old quantity over quality era. And again, that era pretty much for Disney Plus has been defined with okay projects that don't leave you feeling one way or the other, which in and itself is very a troubling issue for a brand like Marvel, because boredom is kind of one of the worst things you can do as a movie studio, as a television studio, as an animation studio. And that's just kind of what this felt like to me. It just felt very okay, nothing I was overly excited for, unlike X-Men 97 last year, which was fantastic. And that's something, I would revisit again in the future by myself. I'd revisit again with my kids. This just felt for me, and again, unfair comparison to Predator Killer of Killers, like a project that just needed a little bit more cooking in the writer's kitchen to come together with a little bit better of an overarching story plot. And another little tiny rating or judgment scale I do with superhero movies and shows is how my wife interacted with them while we were watching and how she felt with them after. And this is a show that honestly that she was just kind of pretty bored with. I could tell while we were watching it, and she confirmed it after we watched it, that this was just kind of a boring show for her. And that wasn't much different than the thoughts that I had by the end of it. Again, I didn't think it was awful, but I didn't think it was anything great as well. It's just kind of in that mediocre land for me. I'm not sure that this is something I'd recommend to non-Marvel fans. I'm not even sure non-Marvel fans would watch this. I think this is really just more for the hardcore Marvel fans, for the MCU fans who know these characters, who know a little bit about the storyline from previous, Black Panther installments and Avengers installments. If I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it about a 5 or 6 out of 10, which is kind of unfortunate because because when this was first announced and when they did show one of the first animated kind of photos or pictures of it, I did think it looked pretty cool. But that's okay. Not everything's going to be great. Fortunately, it wasn't terrible. Again, it was a just fine Marvel product.